we don't need roads.
Lil Dicky taught us just how cool it is to save that money, and that life lesson wouldn't have happened without our next guest. Dave Burd has shown the world just how genius he is by starring in FX's hit series Dave, where he plays a sort of semi-autobiographical version of himself and his alter ego rapper Lil Dicky, who is convinced that he's destined to be one of the best rappers of all time. But here's the best joke of all. He's genuinely an incredible rapper, borderline genius, so I am so excited he is joining us live this morning. Dave, good to talk to you, my friend. Welcome to Chicago.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate those kind words. I can see that you're on my team here, so thank you.
For sure. I'm going to jump into this. I want to start out talking about your music, which is equal parts hilarious, but also just really great music in its own right. So when you're creating a song, is it harder to make it funny or harder to make it catchy?
It really depends. I'd say it's probably harder to make it catchy. You know what I mean? I think naturally, just for me, like my whole life I've had like comedic instincts, you know, so my initial, life was one that I was a guy who made everyone laugh. And so that was always my skill set. I was not a guy who was like songwriting. So for me, I kind of am naturally more of a comedic personality. And I take a lot of pride in the ability to like learn the craft of songwriting. As you know, I feel like it really does work like a sport, and I've just gotten better and better and better. And I'm able to make songs now that I wouldn't have been able to do 10 years ago, just because you just get better and you understand the nuances of songwriting.
Well, it's interesting to see. Now, I do have a question. When you play this somewhat fictionalized version of yourself on Dave, how does it affect how strangers approach you? Do you ever feel like they're talking to your character rather than talking to you? And I guess by extension, how much of a difference is there really?
I think that luckily for me, it's not this huge drastic difference of like, oh, you play that one thing. So it's like, I'm not like typecast to these people as like, he's that, but really I'm that in real life. Like I really am playing a version of myself in the show. Now that version of myself is a little more hyperbolic. I probably am a little bit more extreme in my behavior and the jokes I'd make, and have a little less social and awareness than I do in real life. But for the most part, I think people are aware of that. And, I try to inject as much of my honest truth into this show as possible, because I really feel as though that's what allows people to connect. Is like, there's no better thing than like honesty and truth. So when I'm injecting that into the show, it means that I'm injecting my real spirit into the show. So when people meet me, I think they've been expecting me to be this way, because that's what I am.
Speaking of your real spirit, one of my favorite stories that I read about you is that when you were starting out, before you blew up, you used to ask your parents a lot, am I a comic genius? And they would lovingly tell you no. So I am curious, all of these years later, have they changed their answer?
I'm like chipping away. Like I wouldn't say that like I've totally turned the corner. I think, I keep them in the loop and abreast of everything I do. And so like when they've heard about like what we've done this season, as far as like the guest stars we've gotten later in the season and like certain things that we've achieved, I think they're finally like starting to be willing to admit like, you know what? I think you kind of are everything that you've said you were this whole time, but I haven't heard it yet. So they're a huge fan of the show. They love it, and they couldn't be more proud of me. And by the end of this season, I'm pretty sure that they're going to call me and be like, okay, you've done it.
You've done it. Well, I'll tell you that you are. Other fans of the show I'd like to mention include Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, Leonardo DiCaprio. These are people who are fans of yours, including myself. You can see Dave Burd, a.k.a. Lil Dicky, on FX's series Dave. The new season premieres this Wednesday. Dave, if you can't tell, man, I'm a fan. So seriously, thank you for taking the time to chat with me this morning, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. Chicago, watch that show. You're going to love it. I promise. That's my guarantee.
Yeah, there you go. All right, man. I appreciate you. Have a good day.
Thanks, Jake. Fun stuff there.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.